Welcome to Perspective Shift. Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Good, Frank. How are we doing today?
Doing really well, man.
Good. Ready to dive into this week?
Yes.
So who are we covering this week?
Shakti Gawain.
Yes. This is very exciting. Shakti Gawain. She first released her book, Creative Visualizations, in 1978. And we thought this would be kind of a fun one for us to jump into this week.
Who recommended this to us?
So this was recommended by Kayla.
Okay.
Kayla's my girlfriend. She also does our social media management, and then she, of course, has her own channels and stuff. But Frank and I were talking about, some ideas this week, and she threw out Shakti Gawain and said, hey, I love this lady. You guys haven't covered her yet. Why don't we do an episode on her? And so I shot it over to Frank, and Frank, why don't you jump in here? It was kind of cool how this story came together.
Yeah, we Karen and I, I get up about 4, she gets about 4:30, and we just sit on the couch and we kind of talk for a little bit in the morning,
Yeah.
And I was sitting there, and she's like, hey, who guys covering next week? And this is like Wednesday or Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're
already a few days into it.
And I mentioned Shakti Gawain, and she like her eyes opened up. Like she was drinking a coffee. I'm like, what's up? She goes, that's the woman who introduced me to all this stuff. And she told me a story, like when she was a single mom, trying to make ends meet. Like I think she was still going to college, raising a daughter, because she worked in Hollywood for like 10 years, but then she went back to school to get a teaching degree.
Okay.
And so every summer, her sister's business partner has a place in Idaho, in Sun Valley, Idaho, and she would go there to watch it because they had 2 dogs.
Yeah.
So they would travel throughout the summer, but they didn't want to take the dogs with them. So she would go there and watch it. And then one day she was like, she always struggled with money and stuff. And her and a daughter, when she was real young, went into a bookstore in Sun Valley, Idaho, and there was a book. It was all tattered up, and it was Creative Visualization by Shakti Gawain.
That is so
cool. And so that was her first introduction to this type of new concept and new way of thinking, understanding. And then I think after that was like Abraham came in. But
do you remember what year that was, or did Karen tell you what year that was?
She didn't tell me what year it was, but she showed. I don't know where the book is. She showed it to me. And
was it a pretty rough copy?
It was.
That's
she
cool.
actually bought. She has 2 copies now, but it was a first introduction. So, and she started doing the visualizations and stuff. So I guess it started working. Now, for the people out there, I just got to warn you, I'm like, be careful what you wish for, because Karen got me, and now she's in hell.
Be very careful.
She's in hell
when you use these creative visualization techniques.
That's what
because they work.
They work. So make sure you're specific when you visualize what you want. And
otherwise, you're going to turn out getting a Frank.
Yeah, if you don't want a Frank.
If you don't want a Frank,
be careful. Yeah.
No, but seriously, that's such a cool story. When Frank called me after that, and he's like, "Oh, you won't believe this." Karen totally knows who Shakti is, and I'm like, "Oh yeah," and he tells me this story, and I told him, I was like, "Dude, this is such a synchronicity. Like, this is so cool. We have to feature. Or this week, we were totally meant to feature her." And so I thought that was cool that this was one of Karen's first. Introduction to these concepts. I love that too. I thought that was cool. So we're very excited to dive into this week's episode, Shakti Gawain, Gawain. Yeah. And then I'm trying to think. So a little bit about her. As I was reading about her history, so she and a gentleman named Mark Allen started a publishing company. It sounded like it happened early from the video I was watching and learning about. It was saying that it's all started in a little California apartment, and they came together and they were like, hey, let's create a publishing company. And so that's when they started I believe it's called the New World Library Publishing Company. Yeah. Right? Yep. So New World Library. And they started putting out books. They put out Creative Visualization, which went on to be #1 seller for her. She sold millions of copies.
I think it was like just that book alone. I think it was like 8 million copies.
See, and that's crazy.
Yeah. But they also had in their publishing collection was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
See, Frank mentioned that today to me this morning, and I thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
Knowing that, a lot of the spiritual teachers and people that we look back on or, appreciate, that they've released material through this publishing company. So that's very cool.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else that we kind of talked about with them. Power of Now. So she lived until she was about 70 years old.
Yeah,
she was born in 1948. Yeah. She just died recently in 2018. You mentioned something about her mom dying the year before her too.
Yeah, her mother was born in 1921, I believe, and then died in.
She was probably like 90.
She was born in 1921 and died in 2017. So like the year before, yeah.
Yeah, see, that's nuts.
Yeah,
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, this world's a mystery.
That's the thing. We come here just to kind of play around and figure ourselves out.
And then we learn how to use our visualization by creating the world we want to experience. And that's kind of what Shakti actually has to offer. And she does it in a very, like the woman next door, the girl next door type of way. It's very simplistic, very basic, and this is what I love about it. It's not complex. A lot of the times when people get into the philosophy of these type of principles that the universe offers, especially the principle of law of attraction, or what you put out is what you get back, it can be very convoluted.
Well, sorry to
No. So she just simplifies it really nice. It's very easy to follow. And she'll even say it, well, when she was around, she would tell you that don't take her word for it, but test it out. And when you start testing these principles, because prior to her coming to this understanding, she was very skeptical about these type of ideas.
Yeah, correct.
And then she started enacting them like, oh, they work. So, and that's why, like I always tell people, when you start to visualize something that you want to see quickly, right? Because you want to see some result. So when you do it to something. If it happens, great. If not, not that big of a deal. And the reason being is there's less pressure of you. So like if you go into visualization, just kind of close your eyes, and we'll get into it further on. She'll talk about it, into a meditative state, and start to visualize you already having the thing or the experience that you always wanted. So you're already in that state, and then you let it go. And the reason I say do this something, whether it happens or not, it's not that big of a deal, because a lot of times we put so much pressure on this has to happen that we actually don't ever get into the state of actually feeling that we actually have it. And that's key. We have to already place ourselves in that place. And so certain things, certain situations, circumstances in different people's lives will be a little more difficult or a little more work to get there. So by starting out with something that, whether it comes or not, will help you understand how this works. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, just do it. Check it out. Don't take our word for it. Just exercise it and see how it works in your life.
Frank, that was so well said. Oh, that is awesome. That's exactly it. And I feel like what we hear these things like, okay, you can visualize anything you'd like, or that sensation, that feeling, that experience that you're looking for, searching for, you desire. And it's that the like distance and separation, or like the want that keeps us from it. It's like this resistance, and so we have this feeling of, oh, I need this so much, or I want this so much, and it's that keeps it away from us. And so I love that Frank brings up, hey, do this with something you could care less if it happens or it doesn't happen, because then that's when you're going to see it show up for you, and you're going to be like, holy crap. Yeah. I never could imagine this. And that's how we need to be with our biggest wants, our biggest desires, our biggest goals. I know it's tough. It's opposite of the way we were taught. It's opposite of the way we've learned to experience life. But what's keeping us from what we want to achieve is this sensation that we don't have it yet, or it's so important that we can't let go of it. And it's in the letting go. It's in the non-attachment, the non-necessary need for it to appear, that it does appear. And that's really the trick to all of this, and what all these different teachers and spiritual people are talking about. So I think that was a great introduction to kind of explaining how Shakti works.
Yeah. The system in which she talks about with the visualization. So, and another thing too, it's the key is, because it's a paradox, is really what it is. It's power within that field of paradox. Because once you think you need this thing to be happy, you're waiting for it to happen in order to get happy. But when you get into that state of happiness, this is when the frequency generates. So that's why it's, we have to learn to let go of the outside world, the experiences of it, and see what arises. Yeah. But when you stay in that state, and just ask for it. And I think we have a video up here when she takes us through that visualization and puts the pink bubble around it.
Yeah. We should do that at the end.
Cool. Yeah, it's a pretty cool technique she shows us.
So we'll actually do Shakti Gawain's technique with you guys during this episode. So, whether you're listening to this, while you're at work, whatever, we're going to take 4 minutes and we're actually going to do the exercise together here on air.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to start with this?
Let's jump into our first clip.
Check this out.
Well, as we change, we literally change the world, because our individual consciousness is connected to what I call the mass consciousness. So as I make real change within myself and within my own life, my consciousness is part of that mass consciousness. So I have an effect on the consciousness. The consciousness changes. The consciousness evolves as I do.
All right, so that was a short clip.
All right.
Yeah, that was a short clip.
Yeah, very short clip.
But I chose this clip specifically because we talk about how divided our world is. We talk about, all the things wrong in our world, and how, if people would just change, this world would be such a better place. And that's not how we're going to change the world. That's not how we're going to find the world we're all looking for and we know this world can be. Everything starts within. And so until we individually all start to awaken, to this concept, to these concepts that we're actively participating in this life, we're going to continue to see division. We're going to continue to, run into the wall, hit this wall of, we're all so different, we're all so separate. It takes a conscious going within to affect the world outside of us. And so you hear all these people going out, marching against stuff, and, how drawing attention to all the wrongs in the world, and how things could be just better if this certain group would change. If only this certain group didn't do this, then the world would be a better place. Oh, these damn liberals. Oh, these damn conservatives. It's always something or the other. But in order to have a true mass consciousness change, like she's talking about, it starts with each of us individually. And then once we change from within, the world starts to change around us. And so we're in this weird, kind of like the paradox Frank is talking about. We see all these wrongs in the world, and we're going out, we're trying to right them, we're trying to do this. But they will continue to multiply and turn into different types of situations. And we see this with us trying to continue to create laws, law after law to, protect certain people and certain types of people and et cetera. And we're furthering a divide by doing this. We're putting our attention in the wrong place. We're putting our attention outside of us, saying, okay, as soon as I fix this outside world, everything's going to be good. And that's not the case. We have to go within. Everything starts within.
Yeah, and Shakti talks about this a lot, that the first understanding you have to come to understand these concepts is that we aren't separate. If you don't come to that concept, it's going to be difficult. So I would suggest come to this understanding that we aren't separate. Actually, there was a really nice commercial on Super Bowl Sunday. Yeah, yesterday was Super Bowl. Yeah.
Yep.
Congratulations, Kansas City.
Yeah, that was a fun game.
It was a good game. But there was a commercial where you see images of people yelling at each other, getting in each other's faces, and there wasn't any. You knew what it was saying, but you didn't hear any sound or whatever. And just people looking at each other, and then it came into this understanding that we're all one. And I think I don't even know what. I don't know if it was based on a church or something.
Yeah,
like
it was
that.
some sort of Christian message.
Yeah,
I remember
Christian
that
message.
commercial.
But it's a life message. Whether you're Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Jewish, it's a life lesson. We all teach this love, but it's misunderstanding that we're separate is what's creating this. So then we've heard the statement many times before. I believe it was Gandhi. You become the change in which you want to see. And so when you go within, when you actually know that we're not separate, you actually start to change. And just one individual can change a whole neighborhood, a whole universe in an instant, the way we look at stuff. Absolutely. So you understand the physics behind it. When I change, so therefore does the universe in that.
It reminds me of that song, too. I think it's John Mayer, but he has a song called Waiting for the World to Change.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the lyrics right now, and I'm just thinking, but I always hear that kind of chorus
that's the
pop
concept,
into my head.
yeah.
It's
Everyone's
be.
waiting for the world to change, and it's like nothing ever changes. So you can't wait. You are the world. You are the universe. It's your experience. So if you're looking outside of you and saying the world is shit, well, that's the story you're telling yourself inside. That's really it.
Correct.
Because everything outside of it is a concept. So if somebody comes in, if you start insulting somebody, you're actually insulting your own inner being, because you're actually talking to yourself through the concept of somebody else. So instead of self-berating, you're actually berating someone else, which in return you're self-berating, if you actually understand what you're doing. Because if you're in complete peace, complete love, I don't care what anyone outside of you does, you wouldn't do that. Yeah. So remember, when you're yelling at someone, giving someone the finger, you're giving it to yourself.
Exactly.
There's no way around it. Like, because everyone else outside of us is a mere concept.
And this was one of the biggest things that happened for me on like my path to awakening and like my journey personally, is I realized how much I was judging others. And there is so much judgment. If you sit back and you think about it, the moment you come into contact with anyone new, you're judging them immediately, whether that's by, their age, their weight, their race, their culture, all sorts of different things. We come into any situation, anywhere. You can be picking up fast food. You can be, going to an appointment, going to a doctor's office. Every time you interact with somebody, you're judging them. And I realized this, and I was like, oh my God, like it doesn't matter who I'm speaking to, I'm coming up with assumptions and judgments. And when I started to peel that away, and I no longer judge anybody, when I first meet them, or when they're talking, or what their situation, what their background, etc., this really began to show me what peace was. I started realizing, wow, I've been judging people my whole life. And we're taught, and we live in a society where this is like marketed as normal. Where we, like in movies and television, we see people interact, and like the thoughts in our head and the ego judging, and the way we're raised by our families. You can't do this. What would people think of you? Or all this bullshit. And I remember when I stopped that judgment, like the no judgment, was one of the biggest moments for me personally. And that's when things for me started to really change. So be very conscious of how you're interacting with anybody on a daily level. And if something comes in where you see yourself judging them, realize that you're judging yourself. Like Frank was just saying, this is a reflection of you, that you're dealing with. So until that judgment begins to cease and we stop doing this, we're not going to find this beautiful world that's interconnected, that we all can live, this utopia that we all truly can live in. Until that point, it's going to seem like we've got to change the world outside of us in order, it's not my fault, it's everybody outside of me who's doing the wrong thing. And that's a total BS line that we've been taught our whole lives, that we got to get out and march and do all this. No. All of that is total BS.
Yeah, and notice, we're not saying don't assess the situation, because when we're going through it, you can have this bliss place. And I don't, the word utopia, everyone has a different understanding of utopia. But I could be in a bliss place now, and then tomorrow be somewhere else. So it's nothing, it's kind of like working out. Going to the gym once doesn't make one continuously healthy. It's something you have to do over and over every day. It's called the daily bread, so to speak. Yeah. So you have to keep reminding yourself. But we're not talking about, judgment and assessment are two different things, because the reason you want to assess the situation is you don't really know where you are on your journey when you're going into a situation. So you don't know if where your thoughts really are until you're in a situation. So when you keep an intuitive assessment on somebody, it's not judging them, but it leads you, it keeps you from getting harmed by somebody too. So we don't want to say, if you're a woman or a man in an abusive relationship, assess the situation. What do you do to get out of it? It's not that you're judging the other person. You're judging the situation you're in. So we got to be careful about just not going into everything too naive as well, because
100%.
when you finally get to this place, you might be there for a moment or two. Nothing will harm you, but sometimes our thoughts are off. We're slightly distracted, and that's when the car accident happens and stuff like that. So you always have to be aware. So we're not telling you just to be airy-fairy about this stuff. This is practical living. And so depending where you are in your journey, yes. And even if you're judging someone, what you're doing is you're judging yourself based on the situation, and sometimes that can be healthy to keep you out of danger. So, yeah, that's something I want to add into, because depending where you are, judgment can be looked at differently, and we got to be careful about that.
That's a great point. Your intuition, your body, your gut will know if something's off, and always listen to that. But there's definitely a difference between like a judgment and then like a feeling or a gut intuition type of thing. And even in those circumstances, those situations can be resolved without, putting the other person down or, mentally creating them as this monster or whatever in your head, because that will only feed more of the story you don't want to experience. So it's like finding your natural footing with this and being like, okay, I can listen to my intuition, listen to my gut. This person's, something's off about them. I don't feel right about it. Let me take a step back, rather than, this person's freaking nuts. They're crazy. All of that feeds more into a narrative that you don't want to experience. And so as you become more and more in tune with yourself, you start to see how impactful your mental narrative and your head chatter is to the experience that you have. And so whatever story you're telling yourself all day long in your head, you're going to experience that. So if you find yourself in a situation like that, do what's necessary to get yourself out, safe, comfortable, etc., but don't feed into that narrative of pain, suffering, etc.
Yeah, because that's exactly what we're talking about here with Shakti, talking about this. Even if you're judging someone, that's still creative visualization.
It is.
It really is. It's not one that's working. And when she uses the word creative visualization, when she's talking about in her book, it's about something that you prefer to happen rather than not happen. But nonetheless, it's creative visualization. And through that creative visualization in your head, the outward world will manifest itself. So if the outward world is manifesting a situation, a circumstance that you don't like, ask yourself, what am I walking around with? What baggage am I walking around with? What question? And then this is where meditation comes in. So get to a place where you can get to a quiet place, because meditation takes you to a neutral situation, neutral circumstance, to where nothing's bothering you, nothing's pulling at you. You can even think about what Sally at work said about you, and you can see it, but it's not affecting you in that moment. That's when we start to change, and that's when we go down the road of inducting these visualizations from a creative standpoint to get what we want, or to get what we want to experience. Yeah.
Let's dive into the next clip.
Most of us are aware of the fact that we have a nearly continuous inner dialogue going on in our minds. The mind is busy talking to itself, keeping up an endless commentary about life, the world, our feelings, our problems, and other people. The words and ideas that run through our minds are very important. Most of the time, we aren't consciously aware of this stream of thoughts, and yet what we are telling ourselves in our minds is the basis on which we form our experience of reality. Our mental commentary influences and colors our feelings and perceptions about what's going on in our lives. And it is these thought forms that ultimately attract and create everything that happens to us. Anyone who has practiced meditation knows how difficult it can be to quiet this inner mind talk in order to connect with our deeper, wiser, intuitive mind. One traditional meditation practice involves simply observing the inner dialogue as objectively as possible. This is a very valuable experience, as it allows you to become consciously aware of the content of your thoughts. Many of these thoughts are like tape recordings of old patterns we've had all our lives. They are old programming we picked up long ago, which is still influencing what's happening to us today. For example, we might find that we habitually think self-defeating thoughts such as, I'm not going to be able to do this, or this is never going to work out right. The practice of engaging in affirmations allows us to begin replacing some of our stale, worn out, or negative mind chatter with more positive ideas and concepts. It is a powerful technique, one which can, in a short time, transform many of our attitudes and expectations about life, and thereby help to change what we create for ourselves. Affirmations can be done silently, spoken aloud, written down, or even sung or chanted. Even 10 minutes a day of repeating effective affirmations can counterbalance years of old mental habits. If you become aware that you are repeating habitual negative thought patterns or attitudes, try saying an affirmation to yourself a few times right then and there.
Right. Affirmations. Do you do affirmations, Mike?
I do. I started affirmations, though, probably like 2 years ago. It wasn't something I did right out the gate.
Mine's take out the garbage. Take out the garbage.
Good little reminders. I actually love how this clip came up next, after, what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Because this is exactly what we were just talking about before we shared the clip, which is our mental chatter colors our emotions and how we experience the world. Like, that's exactly what Shakti was saying. So ask yourself, be honest with yourself. Like, hey, is my mental commentary healthy? Is my mental commentary preferential? Is it leading me to the way, in the direction I'm trying to go? And a lot of us, when we're honest with ourselves after asking that, will say, actually, no, it is self-defeating. It is, a constant kind of holding myself back. This is where we want to start. The mental chatter. This is where everything begins. And that's what I love so much about this clip, and the affirmation side of things, like Frank was just talking about. And I'll be brutally honest with this. The reason I never did affirmations when I started understanding and learning these concepts was they felt weird to me. It felt weird to say.
If they feel weird, you shouldn't be doing them.
No, totally.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is at first, like, I wasn't confident about it. I felt like I was lying to myself, and I didn't like that feeling. And it wasn't until I started to these concepts and ideas that we're talking about began to really settle in my subconscious mind that I began to buy into, if you will, or realize, kind of like what Frank was talking about at the beginning. Shakti was very skeptical of this, and we all are very skeptical about these types of concepts at first, and it's because of the world we were born into and how we were conditioned to live life, which is there's this outside physical world, that you're separate from, and no matter what is going on, you don't really you're not influencing it. The world's just randomly happening around you.
Yeah, we were told we weren't separate from it.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, we were told this is the world. This is who we are.
Yep.
But we realized that we are separate from it. We're just experiencing just like the movie. We're not in the movie. We're watching the movie.
Correct.
And then we're actually making the movie as well.
So like, people are very naturally skeptical about these things at first. Like, what do you mean I can just, this law of attraction, this idea that, your mental chatter matters. Why would my mental chatter affect the world around me? Well, it absolutely does. But we're not taught this, these classical physics that we were taught growing up, really put a damper on these types of metaphysical concepts, which are very, very much so just as true as the classical form. We're taught that life is just like this when life is actually this and that. It's not just a physical experience or just a material experience. There's also this whole other half of us. And so, like, these affirmations that Shakti's talking about here, what she's getting at is your mental chatter. These affirmations will help you to develop a healthy mental chatter, one that is constructive, one that is building on, what you're trying to accomplish. And when you can become aware to the current head chatter, this is where you start to take big strides. Because as soon as the negative mental chatter comes up, you go, whoa, that is not me. This is an old program. I'm going to change this program because I know that this does not serve me. If this mental chatter does not serve me, and in fact is only holding me back, why would I not replace this with a healthy and constructive mind chatter?
All right. Now, how do you personally do that? Because when people hear this, it's just words. Ba 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 ba.
Yep.
But like everyone wants to know, how do we get there? Like, how do we do that? Like, what's the pragmatic way of doing it? Because otherwise, this is just a philosophy that people just nod their head intellectually about and don't get anywhere.
Great question. So it was kind of going back to like what you were talking about. I needed to find affirmations that I believed in. I needed to find ones where I was like,
and how'd you get there?
Well, it was through persistence. I analytically, from the thinking mind, knew that, hey, this is, there's something here, through just my different research on like Dr. Joe Dispenza, Dr. Bruce Lipton, all these people who talk about, even the Moto guy with water. Our bodies are 90% water.
Yeah.
So like if you're speaking at water negatively and you watch the way it crystallizes in a broken form rather than a healthy, abundant form, it's very clear, scientifically speaking, that words do matter and what we're saying to ourselves matters.
Yeah, the definition that we give the word matters.
Yep.
So that's why, kind of like, to simplify it, the way I overcame this stuff was when I said silent. Is there anything, when I looked at my life, that I actually did admire? I didn't have to overcome it. Go to that first. Okay, I'm good at this, and I've always have been. I've never doubted that. And when you start to affirm what you already know about yourself that's positive, all of a sudden you feel your vibration raising. So that I don't care who you are, everyone has success in their life somewhere. Go to that place, close your eyes, and start to feel it. And when you start feeling good, now it's easier to introduce, okay, I'm smarter than I think I was, because if intellect wasn't your thing. But, I was good at sports. Okay, it feels good. When I say I was really good at sports, I think about it. My imagination comes and makes me feel good. Okay. But then my intellect, okay. But now I'm in the state where I feel good. Now I can believe that, okay, I'm more intellectual, or I'm smarter than I really anticipated I was. I'm smarter than I really thought I was. All of a sudden, now it's easy for me to buy into that because I'm not faking anymore, and that generates it. And guess what? This never ends. And what I mean is, it continues to expand. So you don't have to say, I don't have to think I'm an Einstein. I just have to think I'm more intelligent than I was yesterday. That's it. And once I do that, once I grab onto that thought and it starts to expand and grow in the direction in which I want to go, the physics of the universe takes over. It makes it simpler. So go back to something that you already have confidence in. And then use that. Start that with your affirmation. And then throw a couple other things in. It's like you're making a new recipe. I'm going to start with these things that I'm familiar with. Now I'm going to throw some other things on top of it and watch it grow, watch it expand. Because all the science in the world, that's all great stuff. So for a lot of people, the science is just letting them know what they're doing wrong, but they don't know how to do it right. Yeah. And that can be more aggravating. So I could see why people shut out the science part of it. And people understand that this isn't working, but what do I do? How do I overcome it? Start with that nugget that you already have in you, and then start to sprinkle other things on there. So whatever area you're dealing with, don't deal with that at first. Go to an area that you already know is working. Go in, imagine that, use that as an affirmation, and all of a sudden you start to feel better. When you're feeling better, you can add anything in you want to achieve as time goes on. And know this. It grows, it expands, it continues. It doesn't have to be all right now.
Well, one affirmation that I'll share too is an affirmation doesn't always have to be something about yourself. And that was like another thing that I kind of came upon. And I've shared this with you in the past, Frank, but one of the affirmations that I love most that I tell myself almost on a daily basis is I'll wake up, and one of the first things I'll say to myself, I'll say I love you to myself. That's something I started doing a lot, over the last few years. But I'll also say to myself, show me how good life can get. And I'll say that into the universe. I will literally say, and I'll say it like, I don't know, maybe 3 times. I'll just say, show me how good life can get. Show me how good life can get. Show me how good life can get. And then I let go of that and I go on with my day. And I've noticed since I've started saying even little things like that, the coolest experiences will happen. And I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. I never thought this was going to, work its way out like this. So an affirmation doesn't always have to be something, I am good enough, I am worthy, or something like this. There are other affirmations out there. So, I mean, guys, we have the answer to everything in our phones. Pull out your phones, type into Google, list of affirmations. You'll find a list that will come up. Okay, great. Now pick some that resonate with you. Pick some that are putting you on the track that you're trying to go. And type those into your notes in your phone. And then when you get up in the morning, I don't suggest grabbing your phone the first thing in the morning ever, because then your phone's setting the day and you're not. You want to get into a good place mentally before you pick up electronics and stuff. But, use that list that you've created and begin to, say those words and speak them with such a confidence. It's as if you are commanding the universe to give you exactly what you're stating. And it should come from it should be, number one, from a place of total presence, as if it, has already occurred. And then number two, as if, there's no doubt in your mind that this is possible. Those are two of the biggest things in the way you want to, kind of command your universe to show you what you're looking to experience. You're not begging for it. You're not asking for it. You are expecting it.
Yeah, that's who you are. And if you ask, like, if there is something you want to affirm and you don't believe it, go back in and ask yourself, why don't I believe this is possible for me? And that's another way to go and start to search your subconscious to where these beliefs came from.
Yeah.
Why? Because if it's something you want but you don't feel like you can have it, maybe distract yourself in the moment going on to something else. But you're always going to come back to it. So you want to find out, where did this come from? And a lot of times, writing stuff down too also helps. It actually creates a physical expression in the world when you actually write stuff down. And then you start to mirror it, you start to believe it, and it starts to germinate within the field. So everything comes from within. So we want to get into that state of feeling good. Because then it comes to a point where you sit there and close your eyes and you imagine yourself having whatever it is, the bigger house, the car, more money. And you ask yourself, why do I want the car? Why do I want the money? Because I think in having that, it'll make me happy. And then you start to realize when you get really good at this, you're no longer manifesting the physical world. You're manifesting the spirit world. It's different. Things will come. I don't worry about things coming anymore. They just come in the physical world. And I use them when I need them, and I let them go when I don't. But it's this feeling that I'm riding the wave on. That's what it is. And then everything along the wave is like, wow, look what's showing up, the synchronicity. And then it creates the experience in which I'm having. So when you learn not to hold on to the outside manifestation of the physical world, you actually learn to surf life greatly. Yeah. Rather than trying to collect everything. It's like trying to
save everything.
Yeah, it's like trying to surf in an ocean with all junk and, there's bottles and things floating around the water. It's going to be a very rough ride for you if you have too many things around you trying to surf. You have to be free.
Yeah.
And know every single wave onto itself, it's a separate end all together at once, because the ocean is the ocean. But each wave has its own experience. But the great surfer knows you ride it and you let go of it because there's more out there. And when you get into that mindset, stop trying to hold on to stuff. Because everything outside of us is fleeting, but there's more. There's another wave coming, All of a sudden, you're no longer asking for waves. They just show up, and you just happen to be on the board, and you happen to surf it in. But it's that exhilaration, all the intricate work, the discipline, whatever it is that you put in front of you to keep you focused. So when we create a discipline, it keeps my mind in the positive rather than just floating around out there where anything could hit me. And I get distracted. So like Mike mentioned, you get up in the morning, like he and I actually grab my phone to put on the meditation. Sometimes I do silent meditation, but I certainly don't look at my email or any social media, which I'm not really a social media guy anyway. So it's not like a stretch for me. Mm-hmm. But I certainly don't read any emails till later on. And, but so when I get up, I have this discipline. But I enjoy the discipline because I know what's going to bring me. It's like the kid that ran out to the playground, whether it's on the weekend or on the summer break. They ran out to the playground because they knew what it was, what's the phrase? What's the affirmation you say every morning?
Show me how good life can get.
Show me how good life can get. That's what the kid's doing as they're running to the playground. Yeah. They have no idea who's going to be there. They probably have like, okay, one or two of my friends. When they get there, they don't know really, they don't have a plan. And this is how, when we get closer to living like the childlike state, life truly becomes amazing. And then we slip out of it. I get that. Well, I know how to get back there now, so I don't care. It's just like a surfer. You fall off the board. Who cares? The waves keep coming. Who cares? It doesn't matter. So wiping out all of a sudden doesn't really have too much a hold on me. No good.
We all wipe out.
Yeah, the leash, the board is leashed to my ankle, so I don't care. It's not going anywhere. No, sometimes the wipeout's funner than the ride, as long as you're hitting head with the board.
The thing is, like, all of our conditioning and stuff, a lot of it honestly comes from, like, what we were taught in school, which is, you got to get the right answer. If you don't get the right answer, you've failed. You got a bad grade, that grade's going to go on your record. We have all this conditioning, from school that keeps us afraid to fail. We also are taught, there's one authority figure in the class, and they tell you if you pass or if you move on to the next level, the next grade. And this is why people don't believe in themselves. Everybody thinks that when they get out of school and they go to their new job or they're going out to get a job, that they have to be told that they're good enough to do something. That you're something outside of you is going to come to you and say, yes, you're now ready for this. You're now capable of this. There's nothing outside of you that's going to happen. You have to believe it within yourself in order to get to these different parts in life. And this is kind of why, the conditioning from school sucks, is we teach people that they need to be told that they've achieved something. And so a lot of us are going, I'm not good enough. I've never done this before. Nobody's told me I can do this, so I can't. And until that narrative changes, until you realize I have to believe in myself in order for something to happen or come to life or work out, I'm never going to achieve it. And so it's honestly unlearning a lot of the conditioning that we had growing up in life.
Yeah. It's also understanding, too, that school, it's not completely wrong. It's just they only tell you one side of the so they're talking about the cart. Mm-hmm. No one's talking about the horse. So when you actually have the horse, what's the horse without the cart in the physical world, right? What's the cart? What's the horse without the cart? What's the cart without the horse? So we were taught about this cart. So when we start to understand about the horse and the cart, and if you put the horse first, then the car comes. So the physical world will let you know that you're capable, you're confident. Because you can't just walk out onto something and say, I'm confident I can fly this airplane. I'm like, yeah, no. It's not really what we're talking about here. I'm like, you have to go through the rigmarole to figure that out. You just don't do that the first time out. I'm not saying you can't do that first time out, but I'm not going to be the one flying in the airplane with you.
I watched the coolest thing about these guys talking. I forgot what it was, but essentially there was this group of scientists at the time when it's the Wright brothers, right?
Yep.
When the Wright brothers were doing the airplane, that said it is physically impossible for a plane to fly in the air, and it's been scientifically proven. This was going on for 3, 4, 5 years before the first commercial flight, or before these Wrigley brothers were what brothers?
The
Wright brothers.
Right.
Excuse me, not
Yeah.
Wrigley. The circus.
At the gum.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the gum. So before the Wright brothers got this plane into the air, they were told scientifically this could not happen. In fact, it's science. It's proven. It can't happen. And now we're flying commercial flights anywhere we go.
Now they have different science.
But you see what I mean? Like science is only so good.
According to that science, a bee should not be able to fly.
That was actually what they used, were bees' wings, etc. They were talking about the way the wings go, etc. It's funny you bring that up.
Yeah, if you look at the size of the bee and the wings, because if you compare it to, say, a bird, right? Mm-hmm. So the bird's body is a lot smaller than the actual wingspan. The bee's a lot different.
Yeah.
There's no way that bee should have gotten off the ground. So there's a lot of we don't understand, and a lot we still don't understand. But these principles and laws, they've been here. Like, obviously, Shakti didn't invent them. She discovered them for herself. They've been around here for millennia, since beginning of time. And these are laws that you can't break.
Well, the reason I bring that up is I want people at home to realize that, like, what we have bought into as science or as facts is not necessarily always the science or the facts. And in fact, that changes. And so we can limit ourselves by saying, oh, this can't happen because I can't do this and this, whatever that may be. And you need to get that out of your head and go, it doesn't matter if I can't do this or this. Something is going to happen that's going to allow me to bypass, get around, achieve, accomplish, whatever. So, like, growing up, dude, I was taught that Pluto was a planet my whole life. And now here we are today. Pluto's not a planet. You know,
yeah, well, it's just
but like I'm just trying to give like examples from science where science says Pluto's a planet. You know, when I was growing up, I've talked about this before. The whole milk craze was a big thing. It was science. If you don't drink milk, you're going to have brittle bones and you're not going to grow as tall. That was the narrative science was, or the media was pushing, and we were told is scientific fact. My whole life, my mom used to make me not get up from my dinner table until I drank a stupid glass of milk.
Yeah, but that will come back around because it's a belief. So
you see what I'm saying? But like, and now we know today almost half of our population can't drink milk. It's 1 out of 4 people can't even digest it and shouldn't be having it. Milk is so unhealthy for us.
Well, no, the thing is that's a belief because that's why we have to be careful about saying this. People are buying into these other neuroses. And they're blaming it on milk.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's this and that.
Yeah, exactly. There are people that drink milk that have no problem with it.
Of course.
And because I don't really know the core reason for this, but like we live in an amazing world, like especially here in the United States. Everything is coming to us. So now I find people making up things to be problematic with. But you go back 100 years ago, 200 years ago, like people lived hard lives.
Yeah.
They didn't have time to worry. They had to get up and do the work, dig the ditch, whatever they did, take care of the kids. And it was treacherous. Now, each individual has so much time on their hands. They're conjuring up such weird, imaginative aspects. Autoimmune disease. When did that come out?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, everyone's allergic to food. When did that come out? And someone will say, well, it's because the food is bad for you. I'm like, is it or is it a belief? I'm not here to say either way, but it's a belief structure because there are people that had food allergies that did some of the work that we're talking about that overcame them, and then I could drink milk.
Well, I love where you're going with this because this is on the core level.
I don't want to flip sides on this. I don't want to... Because I don't want to be like the person who is against fascism then becomes the fascist.
Yes.
Because it's a belief structure. It's something out there. So science will lead us into a correlation. Okay, I'm looking at this. But then what's at the deeper causation? Why can't somebody eat peanuts or ingest or digest milk like they did for many years? Because when I was a kid, no one had, lactose wasn't an issue.
Yep.
And then the way they produced it and all this other stuff. So a lot of times our intellect can create more harm than anything else. This is why in the childlike state, the child doesn't intellectually have to figure out why they were happy.
Well,
they just knew it.
At the core of what you're saying, whatever we believe is true.
Yeah.
And that's what Frank is getting at here.
And everyone has such divisive beliefs now. And I'm not here to shut them down, but I'm also realizing, hey, part of my discipline is going down the path in which I believe. So whatever it is, it's like, hey, I don't focus on what not to do. I focus on what it is I like to do.
But just like, what am I focusing on? If I'm focusing on, this milk is allowing me to grow and become strong, I'm going to grow and become strong. And I'm going to say it was because of the milk. Or vice versa. If my head is saying, oh, this is total bullshit, milk makes, half the people say. What Frank's is saying, and, everything.
Is a permission slip.
Everything.
Everything's permission slip, but not to degrade the situation you're doing or not to take it out. Because without the act of doing something, there would be no experience.
Yeah.
So, again, like going to the gym, someone's like, yeah, that's why your muscles are big. And I'm like, really? Mm-hmm. Do we really know that for sure? And like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, there are guys at the gym a lot bigger than me, and I'm in the gym longer. Or vice versa. There's people in there lifting heavier than me, but they're smaller than me.
Yeah.
All right. So where does this all come from? Then they'll take it down. Well, it's the genetic. Okay, what's the genetics? Like, well, genetics is something you come with. Where did it come from? Well, it came from your ancestors. Why did it come from ancestors? Now, if you read Bruce Lipton's book called The Biology of Belief, why genetic makeup is passed down is because they're also passing down their beliefs. So my belief then generates a different form of protein. So if I change my belief, the neural pathways in my head change and the proteins in my genetic makeup change. Therefore, the gene starts to change. So what is the genes? It's a culmination of thoughts and beliefs that were passed down from generation to generation, and they were put onto you. Do you want to carry these beliefs? Oh, do I need to get rid of them? Well, I don't know. Is it serving me? And we don't really know. Like, we can know what's serving me in the moment, but people thought, like, I know what's going to serve me 10 years from now. I'm like, I have no idea what's going to serve me 10 years from now. I don't know, I don't know if I'll be still here,
Your gym example, too, I love it. The one story about, they actually did an experiment on this. They had a group go to the gym, work out, do this, and then they had another, control group, and then a third
they
group.
did for college students.
Yeah, you don't go to work out, but every day you picture yourself working out. You're doing the same type of lifting as the group actually doing it. And when they compared the results, not only did the people who were visualizing it gain muscle mass and increase, but it was almost to the exact same amount as the people physically doing it. They were only off by 1% or 2%. It wasn't a crazy amount. So, I mean, not even physically lifting the weight, just picturing yourself doing that each day and going through the repetitions in your mind, they actually built muscle mass. This is an actual experiment, and this is so cool, and it shows you the power of the mind. And like Frank's getting at, everything is belief.
Yeah.
Everything is belief. Everything is consciousness. Everything is consciousness. Consciousness is made up of our beliefs.
But there is something, though, about the acting, because when they go further in that study,
yeah,
the students that were going to gym and lifting continued to go, where the other students stopped imagining it, and their muscles went back down to atrophied.
Oh, okay. Did they?
So yeah, because there seemingly to be some correlation, huge correlation with the outward doing. So sitting on the couch and imagine my muscles getting stronger, and I think they did it over like a 4-week period, so like a month, if I'm not mistaken. Their muscles did grow. They grew, like, I think their strength jumped up 26%, where that was a control group. The group that actually worked out was like 30-something%. So it was higher. But once the other group stopped thinking about it, they went back down. They lost their strength. So there is an enactment of the physical world in doing, because you do something because you know you're capable of doing it, and this is what perpetuates it. So there is something about, so if you just sit there, use imagination, you just have the horse. Without the cart, there's nothing to pull. There's nothing to drag around. So the experience, when we look at it, I look at it this way. I sit on the cart and direct the horse. My experience is because I have the horse and the cart. But if I just have the horse, I'm watching it run around because it's not saddled.
I think a good way to also explain that too is we are both the masculine and the feminine. So the feminine, is the creation from the mind, the thought, the imagination, etc. And then the masculine in each of us is the doing.
The enacting,
getting it done. And so this is that balance, hence the atrophy or, loss of muscle mass. Yeah. They did not have both the masculine and feminine, which we all are. We all are masculine and feminine. That's the whole point is, finding our true power. And even kind of vice versa in some of the other, examples we've given.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like the masculine and the feminine is a big role of that. The feminine, conjures it up, it creates, and then the masculine does it and gets it done, and goes out and takes the action.
It actually takes the action which the feminine created to the intuition. But that's why, like, if you just come up with an idea, a thought, like, okay, I want to start a business, and it generates, you sit around for like, a couple of days, a month doing that, but then all of a sudden you don't take an action on it, it's a miscarriage.
Yeah.
So that's the idea of it. So yeah, the idea was there. Like there was life there. There was something happening, but nothing was in act. You didn't act it believing it was about to come, and then it became. I've heard, I think it was Alan Watts called it a stillborn, into the understanding of we then have to take action onto that, and to see it, to keep building, to see that it works.
Yeah.
But at another level, it's like, hey, it's just an act, it's just something. So when we stay in the state of feeling good, the creative mind will always work in our favor. And then we visualize something. And then if we actually feel that we're already doing it, we start to act. We act as if we are already there. Yeah. Not just in the mind, but in the actual world. And when you start to do this, you'll start to see life goes your way. And all of a sudden, when you get to these places, I'm like, okay, all this stuff is coming to me. Then you shift to a higher level of humanity, into the side of the being. So you got the human being side. And we do that. We actually help all lift up humanity. And we have the ability to start changing humanity. But from that point, because too much doing, doing stuff, getting more stuff, is kind of what led us to this place of going within. So in the East, everything was disassociated for, even those religions would disassociate and dismantle the human body. Well, that doesn't work. Then we came to the West. It was all about the body. It was all about the outside world. Well, now we're actually marrying the two together. Because the original texts in both the East and the West were at this basis. Buddha wasn't completely trying to separate from his body, although he tried by leaving the palace and going out into the wilderness and get rid of everything. And he realized, well, this isn't working either. So he found that balance point. But it's not about disassociating from the physical world and just rest in the spiritual world. It's about marrying the two together, this and that, not or. So there were a lot of people in the East that were always in the spirit world, just sitting on the roadside with their eyes closed as things crumbled around them. But they were blissed. And then you come to the West, where they're building everything up, and look at all the technology and all this stuff. But the anxiety was growing. Wow, we have an easier life to get around in the outside world, but why was anxiety growing? Because we were this or that, not this and that. So now it's time, we're marrying the two, East and West, together. One isn't better than the other, but without the other, this physical world experience through the confines of our imagination and the creation of our imagination wouldn't be experienced. Me and Mike wouldn't be sitting here talking to you guys with mics. Mm-hmm. I would just be sitting on the couch and you would never know me. Maybe in spirit you would,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's jump into our next clip.
Here we go.
Well, there's some simple techniques. The main technique is learning how to relax, which is a big one for a lot of us in this society. So, I usually teach people some very simple kinds of relaxation and meditation techniques. Just close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, relax your body. And sometimes I encourage people to just lie down and put on some soft music or whatever can help you to relax. Or some, traditional breathing techniques, whatever. And so the first step is just to relax your body, relax your mind, let yourself drop into a kind of quieter, deeper level of consciousness, which puts you more in touch with your intuitive or creative self. And after that, the basic technique of visualization is to create an experience within yourself of whatever it is that you want. And that can be an external thing or an internal thing. In other words, you could visualize or imagine yourself in your new house or your new job. Or you could simply visualize or imagine yourself feeling self-confident or feeling very creative or learning how to express your feelings more directly or anything it's important to you.
And it could be an internal state as well.
Anything. Yeah, absolutely.
It could be a state of enlightenment or something of that sort. I don't know how you'd quite visualize that, but I imagine
whatever
there are
it means
ways.
to you. What enlightenment means to me is just completely loving and accepting myself as I am and enjoying myself moment by moment.
How do you visualize that?
Well, I just imagine, what it would be like to go through my day feeling good about myself,
not judging myself, but loving and appreciating myself, being very spontaneous. It's kind of a childlike state, being very spontaneous and just doing what you love to do and enjoying yourself.
And so you might
feeling, and if you don't feel, if you feel sad, you feel sad. If you feel happy, you feel happy.
So you could think of it as almost like a fantasy that someone
Visualization and fantasy are very closely connected. The only thing about fantasy is that we usually tell ourselves that our fantasies are impossible.
Right.
Oh, that's just a fantasy. And one of the first things I do with people in using visualization is I start encouraging them to fantasize and to believe that there's the possibility that their fantasies might be true, or at least that they always contain a kernel of truth in them.
And one of the rules or the guidelines that many traditions express and that you mentioned is to visualize this as if it's already happening.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Put it into the present.
Yeah, the idea of visualization is to create an internal reality, which then tends to attract that to you externally.
Yeah. She explains it very well.
She does. Yeah. She knocks it out of the park, especially with the beginning. I love how she brings up, you have to relax. That's really like the crux of all this.
Yeah, and because when you're in a relaxed state, you're more in a neutral state, so there's not too much coming at you. That's why having a practice in the morning, even if it's difficult, just give yourself a minute or two to take a couple of breaths in and out. And when you're breathing in and out, you can't really think, because when you're saying in and out, like that's a technique I use too when I breathe. I don't necessarily breathe deep when I'm doing this particular breathing technique. I just get into a relaxed state, and when my body breathes in, I quietly and silently say in, and when it breathes out, I say out. And after like 2 or 3 of those, any thought that was running around through my head is just nowhere to be seen. All of a sudden, I'm relaxed. I'm like, okay, now that I'm relaxed, let me imagine how my day is going to go. And then I start to use the imagination. Like, okay, I'm going to go to work, or this is going to happen. I'm going to have an exciting time. Just like a kid running to the playground, they're already in their mind. They're already excited. There's multitudes of visions coming through their head. That's why anyone that's ever experienced like deja vu, I used to experience it a lot when I was a child, and more people do it when they're children, because they're so caught up in the moment that the present and the future just, it's like a short circuit. Somehow they end up in it, and it's like this weird moment that like, and then like, well, that's weird. Like I know I've logically never been here, but yet it feels like I've been here before. And that happened to me a lot when I was a kid, because you get caught up in this where you're not like, oh, this can go wrong, that can go wrong. I just ran out of my house. My shoes weren't even tied, and
you just showed up.
Yeah, you just showed up. And, you only tied your shoes if you tripped over. You weren't concerned. You didn't have money in your pocket. You weren't concerned about what can go wrong.
Or why.
You're like there. And then you figured everything out. Yeah, it doesn't mean you fell off the swing, get hurt. Yeah, it happened. Doesn't mean that's not going to happen, but I dealt with it in the moment. So we weren't too far out thinking, because if I start thinking like, oh shit, if I fall off the playground today and get hurt and whatever, I'm not going. I'm just staying right here.
That's how 90% of us
and
live
then
our
if you
lives.
stay here, I got to mow the lawn. I'm like, shit, I'm screwed. So let me go walk around the block, stay away from the playground. My dad's going to make me mow the lawn. All of a sudden, now you're like hiding off in the woods by yourself. It's like,
yep.
This is the life and story of Frankie.
I really like the relaxed point that she mentions, and I just want to touch on how much we toward like listeners at home and just myself, like I had to remind myself that I deserved to allow myself to relax. We're taught that like we live in at least in the Western world that I grew up in, we live in this like world where it's almost kind of like looked down upon if you relax. That you need to be constantly grinding and hustling and all this stuff to achieve goals and, accomplish your desires, whatever. At the end of the day, the quickest way to bring any experience to you and any want, desire, whatever, is through relaxing. Because if we're speaking present tense with all this, our affirmations as if they've already occurred, would you not be in a relaxed state if you had what it was that you were asking for or picturing. If you really are already in that state, you would be totally and completely relaxed. And this is what I had to teach myself, is there would be no sensation of, oh, well, what if this doesn't happen? Or, am I doing the right things to stay on the right track? None of these little thoughts would, be in existence if you truly already had what you were looking to accomplish. And so what is that state of truly having what you've already wanted? It is relaxation. It is being totally and completely relaxed. So I love that she brings us up, that this is point number one, because if you're at home thinking you don't deserve to relax because you have bills that are due, or because your kids need something, or there's something that must be done at work by a certain deadline, you do have the ability to relax, even with those certain things hanging over you. And in fact, those things will become accomplished quicker, better, than you ever could imagine if you allow yourself to relax. So those at home listening to this, relaxation is the key. What are your thoughts on that, Frank? Like, was it hard for you to let yourself relax? For me, that was a difficult thing. I felt like I didn't deserve to relax, that I need to do this, and this. And then when I have this amount of much money in my bank account and I know that everything's good here, then I'll relax.
Yeah, I compartmentalized relaxation. So when I was younger, relaxation meant Saturday and Sunday, or Sunday and Monday in my case. Mm-hmm. So on those days, I was relaxed, or on vacation. But when you're working, you weren't relaxed. So all of a sudden, I learned to be relaxed at all times. So all of a sudden, over time, and it wasn't like it happened overnight with me. It was just a gradual state of happening. But like right now, and I'm not even lying, I know the difference between Sunday and Monday, Tuesday. I know the difference between the days, but there isn't a better day for me.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that I understand the difference between the days, because I know this, like on Mondays we did a podcast. So I'm not like, oh shit, tomorrow's a podcast. I'm aware of it. But when I go and do my activity tomorrow, with my clients and stuff, I'm aware of that. But every client's different. Every day's different for me. It's just how my life is. But I don't dread it. When I'm there, I'm not trying to get away from there. I'm always, most of the time, in a relaxed state. And when I find myself, and most people know what relaxation is. Why? Because you wouldn't have anxiety and understand you had anxiety if you didn't understand relaxation. So happiness, love, relaxation, what you want to call it, that is our natural state. Because if anxiety was a natural state, hey, New Yorkers would be doing just fine. They would have no idea. It's like if depression was the only thing, you wouldn't know you're depressed. But how do you know you're depressed? Because you're so much happier in life, more so than you are depressed. Yeah. It's like, hey, I live in Arizona. You notice when the sun disappears quickly, because it's mostly sunny. Yeah. It really is. You notice it. So we notice when things are out of whack. But when you start to notice when things are in perfect harmony, that's when you stay there. Most people don't think about it that way. That's why I go back to my child state. I even go back to when I was a child, like what was going on then. I'm like, I wasn't thinking. I was just responding and reacting. I thought less and responded and reacted more. Yeah, I fell out of a tree. Me and my friends figured out, or I knew how to get help if I needed help. It doesn't mean that's not going to happen to you. But But now I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to fall off a tree or I'll get hurt. I'm like, all of a sudden now you're sitting on the couch watching Law and Order or something. Yeah. And I'm like, what kind of life is that? Yeah. Because I'm like, yeah, we're fully capable of responding to things. And the more relaxed I am, hey, if I fell off a tree and I was relaxed, I wouldn't have broke a bone. I
love seriously though. I love your explanation right there of just how relaxation and being in a state of ease is our most natural state. Yeah. And you're so right. It's think about it. Like, do you honestly right now, anyone listening to this, are you aware of your heart beating before I just said that? Like, are you aware of your heart beating in town? Are you aware that you're breathing? No, we do these things so naturally. It's not until our breathing gets short or tight that we start to notice, or our heart skips a beat, or or it's beating a little irregularly or faster than usual, that we're like, whoa,
Yeah.
I'm noticing this. And that's because this body, which is not us, we're a soul, we have a body, is an instrument, and we haven't been taught about this instrument. We've been told we are the instrument. And so you are not the instrument. You have an instrument, which is called a body. You are a soul, and you come to this earth to remember who you are, the creator that you are, and the experience that you're having. And so, use this tool, if you feel that that heightened sense of anxiety, angst, anger, depression, whatever, to go, whoa, this is not my most natural state. I should not feel this way. This is when you really start taking control of your inner experience and your inner world. We're kind of taught that oh yeah, you just have this inner pain and you struggle through it, and then you make enough money, and then you buy enough stuff, and then you buy enough insurance so you don't have to worry about anything, and then you're just kind of somewhat comfortable. No, this is not the world we're supposed to live in, guys. What we have been taught and what is publicized in our media and, movies, television shows, it's propaganda. We're constantly in these states of fear, pain, suffering, and anxiety, etc., and that is not our most natural state. That is not how we're supposed to live. And so it's up to us each of us individually, to take control of our experience, take our power back, if you will.
And the way to do that is here's really basic pragmatic things. I always like to bring it back to practical. So when I'm working with my clients, okay, I understand that intellectually it sounds freaking great. If I was in the audience, I'd applaud and walked out the door. I'm like, well, how the hell do I do that? Mm-hmm. So the reason you're starting to see people meditate, see people getting out and hiking and working out and doing all this stuff, they are purposely putting themselves in discomfort. They know they can handle it. So just like a firefighter, prior to going to their actual first fire, they get in a situation where they'll start a fire. Now they have to figure out how to put it out. So they're actually in this controlled environment where they're learning to stay relaxed when there's a fire. But most of us, when we see a fire, we panic. Why? Because we want to survive. So as we start training ourselves inward and outward simultaneously, all of a sudden, if I start going to the gym and, if I do a workout I've been doing for a while, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I'm just going to the gym and loosening up. But if I start to, maybe one day a week, just take a day where I completely grind, get to the point where I'm almost throwing up, but remind myself to breathe, all right? And then I go a month, and then I do that twice a week. Now I'm doing it 3 times a week. And then the other workouts are I'm putting myself in a situation where I'm learning, the mind is learning to control itself and calm down. Then if something does happen, and it's not the gym, maybe you're walking down the street and something happens, like a car swerves and goes to hit you, you'll actually be able to respond to it. So that's why, meditating on the couch, that's controlled. But I'm meditating on the couch because when I go out in the world, shit's going to happen, and I don't want to be like, shit, I have to go home. I don't have to walk around my couch. I don't want to have to my house, I don't want to live in a cave saying this is a prime spot. No. I want to meditate for a couple minutes in the morning so when I go out into the world, I can stay in that state. I can remember that state I felt like on the couch without the couch. Yeah. So by setting up circumstances, situations in your life to where you can go out there and do it, push yourself one more inch further than the last time, whether it's intellectually. Learn something that's you have known nothing about, just a little bit, till it gives you a headache. But you're in control because you're the one choosing to learn it. No one's forcing you. Because when you get out into the outside world, your subconscious is what rules your world. And if you don't stop breaking that down, this is problematic. And all the stuff that me and Mike are talking about sounds good on paper, but is ridiculous. People said this is not true. And I'm like, well, if you believe it's not true, it's not. But it's in the act of breaking down the barriers. So if you're scared of heights, and you live in a world where sometimes it might be difficult to overcome that or avoid it. So, okay, I'm in a world where I can't avoid it. So how do I deal with it? Well, if you're scared of heights, grab out a 6-foot ladder. Walk up 2 rungs. Look down. Okay, it feels good. Walk up 1 more rung. Look down. I'm getting a little nervous. We'll stay there. Stay there for a couple of minutes. Hang out there. All of a sudden, the nerves go away. All right? Walk back down. Tomorrow, walk up to the 5th rung. These are simple, pragmatic things you can do. And all of a sudden, through just the mental state of saying, I can do this. This is the internal state. And then the act of walking up the ladder and then overseeing that, like, wow, all of a sudden my belief of being scared of heights to a degree is diminishing. Well, there you go. You're testing it. And now I'm actually in the physical world, utilizing it through my creative expansion. And it's like, oh my God, I can do this. And then when you recognize I made it up to the 5th rung of the ladder and I didn't even get nervous, I'm like, well, there you go. It doesn't mean you have to get a bigger ladder. It means you're actually be able to break down the barriers of the thoughts and disbeliefs that you had about yourself. And that in itself can get you to start a new business. You know, grinding at the gym could get you enough courage to ask a girl out, can get you to be calm in a very tough situation that most people seem to be tough. But I'm controlling the gym. I'm controlling a separate ladder. So we take and come out and control it. We actually get ahead of it. Like when people are upset and nervous, I do not tell them to meditate. I try to distract them. And when I distract them and get them relaxed, then I'm like, okay, meditate. Mm-hmm. So get ahead of your life. So the visualization is getting in front of it. I'm seeing my day before it happens. And then it happens. It's always a surprise how it comes.
Well, so like what you just said kind of popped up into my head. I love that you pointed out people really aren't looking for any type of relief or resolve or answer until they're in like the dire state, which is, you know, they're in panic mode. Everything's going wrong. I don't know what to do. I need to call a therapist. I need to do this. I have to like people just start losing it. And it's always like, at the end, like when they're just so fed up and they've had it, it never starts before that point. And it's so hard to just be like, oh yeah, go ahead and meditate when people are in this crisis mode or this chaos. Yeah. It can't be found there. It needs, okay, we need to bring you down from this point in order to, you know, set you free, if you will. And so if you find yourself, you know, in a dire situation like that is not a place to create from. That is a place to solely cool down, come down from. Yeah,
that's where you're surviving. Yes, that's when you're surviving. So then, you know, again, we talk about like how to relax. So a lot of special forces, and they do this in the military all the time, they do a thing called box breathing.
Yep.
So when they're going through something, they breathe in like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold, 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 1, and I'm doing it faster. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold out, 1, 2, 3, 4. That creates the box, and you're counting 4 times. All right. You don't have to breathe in deep because if like I'll do this at the gym, so I'll do it, and I'm like doing some type of pharma carry or something like that. That I'm doing a long distance, and I have to really keep my. It's not about having enough oxygen and strength. It's about me saying I'm like, oh my god, my arms are tired, All of a sudden, my brain now is utilizing my energy. But if I just stay in a nice, calm, relaxed state and I breathe in 4, hold it for 4, breathe out for 4, hold it out for 4, and I do that, next thing I know, I walk the entire gym holding a certain weight, and I made it.
Yeah.
I stayed in a calm state. So I purposely put myself under distress to see how low I could keep my heart rate, how low I could keep my brain waves. Mm-hmm. I put myself in that situation. So when I am at work or somewhere and something does happen, I'm actually learning to control myself and maintain myself. And then it's easier to get back to the baseline when I step out of it. So I'm in control. I'm not waiting for the problem to happen to try to solve it. So just doing stuff like what I'm talking about, going to gym or intellectually learning something that's something that isn't really adding on to what you already know, it's going a different field, will change your brain patterns and give you confidence that, hey, I can learn new things. I can do this. Hey, I could be calm even though I'm walking around with heavy weights, and normally I'd be breathing heavy. And I just focus on how it was the time before. I don't compare myself to anybody else because I would leave the gym if I did that. I would never get a workout in. Especially I go to the gym, it's all young kids. I'm like, shit. Like, you know, yeah.
Is that what it's like now? Are there a lot of young guys?
Oh, yeah. That's why I think it's brilliant. Because the young kids
awesome.
now, like, they don't have the playground anymore, but with these young kids going in there, they're learning the discipline of putting themselves in a discomfort, but they're actually gaining comfort from it.
Yeah.
There's something brilliant about that. And you're starting to see a lot of kids, a lot more than when I was young at the gym. Like, the only kids that went to gym when I was young were the guys who wanted to get really big or they were in the sport.
Okay.
Every kid, whether they're considered to be a geek or not, you see them in the gym.
That's awesome.
And it's because they're putting themselves in discomfort willingly.
Mm-hmm.
When if you've never meditated before, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I meditate, like, it's comfortable. Well, then I went to Dr. Joe Dispenza meditation. I'm like, 4.5 hours? What? And we didn't know that till it happened. But there were moments when I'm like, oh, my God, what's going on? And but yet it was a challenge, but yet it was worth the challenge.
That is so cool.
So, yeah, you're putting yourself in these places that you've never been to. Going into the unknown is very uncomfortable if all you do is set up a life of known. Mm-hmm. So by doing these different things, by grinding at the gym or doing stuff, going to cold water, hot, or all these different things that are uncomfortable, it teaches you to go into the unknown. And that's what everything that we wish for is. Mm-hmm. It's in the unknown. And, like I said, I've used this analogy before, but the idea of the story of Santa Claus, it's the universe. You write down what you want when you're a child. You send the envelope off to the North Pole. Mm-hmm. You did that in early December, probably November. I was like, okay.
Get it out early.
It was the only time I didn't procrastinate, right, as a child, is writing that list. Like, I had the list in August. I'm like, shit, okay, this is what I'm doing. And then you send it out, and then you almost forget about it. And then Christmas comes, and then all of a sudden, one by one, you open it up, and the gift came, but you're still surprised. Like, wow, it came. This is how it works. But once I had written it and sealed the envelope, now, this is what Shakti talks about. Now, I'm imagining what it would be like to have it. Yeah. Not looking for it, waiting for it. How is Santa going to get to me? How is it going to come to me? If I start thinking about that, that's when anxiety grows. Mm-hmm. But now I'm like, okay, I wrote it down, sealed the envelope. Now, what is it going to be like to have that new hockey stick? Like, this is shit like as a kid, They had a nice curve, and you could do the wrist shot. They could, send it in the upper corner of the, it's how I'm thinking. Like, okay, that's going to be great. So I'm already thinking, like, I'm using this thing, And all of a sudden, bam, Christmas comes, and it's very tough to wrap a hockey stick now. Like, it looked like a hockey stick.
You totally know what it is.
Hey, Dad, what's that?
Shut up and open it.
Shut it open. Yeah. They probably had to hide it. They always had to hide my gifts because I was a kid that scrounged through the house,
shaking it, listening.
Oh no, I didn't shake it. I went to the closet.
Searching.
I was searching. Yeah.
That's so awesome.
I was like a thief in the night.
I was a thief in the night.
Yeah.
So this next clip that we have, we thought we would do an exercise with everybody today, live on air. So Shakti has this technique called the pink bubble technique.
Yeah. And
so what this is it's a visualization technique. I think she talks about this in Creative Visualization too, right? In the actual book.
Yeah, in the book, it's in there.
Which is great.
Yeah.
So we're actually going to, with you guys here at home now, do this live. So take a second. I don't know if you're driving, working, whatever. Find a couple of minutes. This is only 3-4 minute exercise. And what we're going to do is, go ahead and take a few deep breaths, in, out, kind of relax for a second. And then put just allow this to play in your headphones and give yourself an opportunity to try this creative visualization technique.
Yeah, so if you all listen to podcasts and want to continue to do that, but this is something you want to do when you're obviously not driving a vehicle. It's just sitting. You want to be doing this sitting somewhere.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Either sit or lie down comfortably. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. Breathe in. Hold it, exhale. In, hold, exhale. Continue to breathe deeply, slowly, naturally. Relax. Gradually relax your whole body deeper and deeper. Now imagine something that you'd really like to manifest. Imagine it has already happened. Picture it as clearly as possible in your mind. Notice the details. Notice the colors, the sounds. What are you doing with this thing you're imagining? How does it make you feel? Really see yourself with this thing that you want to manifest, this thing that you want to change in your life. Take some time and visualize the details. Continue to visualize. Really believe that it's happening. How do you feel? Picture yourself talking about this to someone you love, explaining this new thing in your life and how happy it makes you. How can this benefit others as well as yourself? Really feel it happening, feel the emotion, feel the good that it does for the whole world. Feel all the pleasure that you can get from this thing, all the pleasure you can give from this thing. Really feel it, celebrate it. Now, in your mind's eye, surround your fantasy with a pink bubble. Put everything that you've dreamed of inside this bubble. Pink is a color associated with the heart. And if this color vibration surrounds whatever you visualize, it will bring to you that which is in perfect affinity with your well-being. The final step is to let go of the bubble. Imagine it floating off into the universe, still containing your vision, your dream, the scenario that you want to happen, that is happening. This symbolizes that you are emotionally letting go of it. Now it is free to float around in the universe, attracting and gathering energy for it to manifest in your life. There's nothing more for you to do. Just relax. Relax. Let the universe work for you.
Yeah. That's a great practice right there.
I did that all week.
Yeah, it's simple. And yeah, when you get that, because once you imagine what it is you want to experience or have, and then you must let it go and stop thinking about it all day. Because the reason is, when you start to think about it, you're going to think about how I'm going to get it. And if you knew how, you would already have it. Mm-hmm. It's the truth. Mm-hmm. So the fact that you don't have it means you don't know the how. But once it comes, the how is then, because once anything is created, then we can reverse engineer it. So everyone thinks, well, I need to know how things happen. I'm like, no. I'm like, you can replicate something by reverse engineering it. But we're talking about the creation of something that you've never experienced, you personally.
And that's what Shakti is all about, is helping you identify that you are a creator. That's the reason we come here. We don't come here to create a lot of money, create a lot of, a big house, create a lot, of material things. Sure, that's great. We can do that, and that's awesome. But we're here to remember and understand that we are creators, and every one of us has this ability.
Yeah, and so when you follow this principle and let it go and put it off to the universe, just kind of like when you text a friend of yours, you just assume they're going to get the message, and you go about your day till they text you back. You don't sit there. Maybe some people do wait, like, hey, and you just text it, send it off, and then go about your day. It's going to come back to you. Yeah. And just trust it, know it is what takes the anxiety away. So understanding these principles is what eliminates anxiety. And when you eliminate anxiety, you actually naturally fall into that nice, peaceful state. And that peaceful state brings along love, and enjoyment, and all these other expressions.
Try this technique for the next week, guys.
Yeah.
Also, let us know if anybody has a cool experience from the pink bubble technique.
The pink bubble technique.
We would love to hear, the results of this. But again, like Frank was saying at the beginning of this episode, pick something, that you care less about. I might or might not get, $1,000 this month, whatever, $10,000 this month. Throw any type of thing where, it's not absolutely hinging upon it. This must happen, and then let it go, and use this visualization, and then let us know.
Yeah.
I hope every single one of you makes $10,000 this week.
Yeah, that'd be nice, right? Yeah. And me and Mike could take 50% of that from the pink bubble.
Right, exactly.
It's the pink bubble.
Yeah. The pink tax.
Yeah,
but
the pink tax.
Seriously, guys, thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode with Shakti Gawain. I want to make sure I'm pronouncing that right.
Gawain, yeah.
We had a great time, but before we leave, one thing I'll mention, Shakti Gawain's first name was Carol Gawain, and she got the name Shakti. It sounds like we were trying to do a little research on how she got this, but it sounds like she came up with that, and kind of named herself that, as she started releasing books, etc. That was her kind of her spiritual title, if you will, but it has to do with the divine feminine. And so divine feminine, goddess, etc. That's kind of the meaning behind Shakti, and we wanted to make sure we included that in this week's episode.
All right. Well, if you like what you're seeing here on YouTube, just go down and hit the subscribe button. Also, to DM us on Instagram. We like getting messages. And anyone out there have any questions or want to share a story about the pink bubble or any other story, just email us at perspectiveshift2020@gmail.com, and we'll get back to you.
Yep, we'll be back with another week or a new episode on this week's special Spotlight.
Spotlight, yeah.
So we'll be featuring, different stories that you guys write in about. So definitely send us an email, like Frank was saying, perspectiveshift2020@gmail.com. We love reading through those and replying back to you guys. And we'll be sharing some with you guys each week.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks
Peace out.